I was about 5 or 6 years old, and my mom took me to, it was like Lucky's, kind of what a Ralph's is now or whatever. And it was very distinctive that there was this older Caucasian man with a long beard, and he had this like weird hat, kind of chubby, and just looked like he wasn't from the town we were in. Now, like I said, I grew up in San Diego. We live near a military base. So there's distinctive nationalities that live in this area. And what I mean, like, he stood out is because he had these cowboy boots and a cowboy hat, and not that because people can't wear it. It was just rough looking. I was little, just wandering around and looking for, I think it was like toys or candy, and my mom was just like eye shot away from me so she could see me. Well, I wasn't paying attention, and I was just looking up, and I just grabbed a hand thinking it was my mother's. So I'm walking along the aisle thinking that it's hers, and we stop, and I hear my mom call my name, and I looked up, and it was this man. And I was just like stood there frozen, and my mom comes around, and she's just like, "Hey, what are you doing? You didn't hear me calling you." And I couldn't even think of the words to tell her, like, this man is grabbing my hand, walking me through the store. And she's like, she could tell there's something wrong with me, but she really couldn't. I couldn't articulate. I'm 5 or 6 years old. And I was like, and I remember telling her, I was like, "Mom, there's this man." And she's just like, "Okay, let's go," rushing me. So I'm like now feeling weird as a little kid, like, who's around me? And I could see the top of his hat across the aisle because they were low back in the days. And this I remember because it's dim lighting. It's very like eerie, that weird muggy feel in the store. That's how old, okay? God, I'm really saying my age, but you can see the top of his hat. And my mom's not paying attention. I'm looking, he's looking at me. And he does this thing with his beard, like he's caressing his beard, like almost like, "I'm gonna get you. I'm just waiting. And I'm just like, I grab onto my mom's leg, and she's just busy. And I'm like, "Mom, the man." And she's just looking at me like, "What are you talking about?" There was another lady with a kid, and like the grocer, the produce guy, let's say. And I'm just like, I don't want to scream because she's gonna get mad at me because I'm screaming versus and we're walking out, and I'm like looking out this way because my mom's now checking out, and your mind just disappears as a kid. Like, you're forgetting in the moment what's going on. And I feel a tug on my hand again. And I'm like, and then that time I was like, "Mom!" And she turns around, nobody there. And I'm like, "Mom, there's a man. He keeps trying to grab my hand. He keeps trying to take me." I'm like, "Mom." She's just, "There's nobody here, mija. Let's just go. It's fine." And I'm like, "No." And now I'm scared. I'm like tugging onto my mom, like I'm holding on to her with dear life. We're walking out to the car. Till this day, I hate El Camino cars. It was like something that was going around in the city or the town, that there was this man kidnapping kids in an El Camino car. Now, I'm 5, 6 years old. I don't know what El Camino car was or what it meant, but I know what it looked like. The hatchback where it's open, I hate those cars. And he was keeping kids in there. I want to say probably 98, 99, I had gotten terrible news from my family that my grandmother had passed away. And it was very tragic because she was the woman of the family, the queen. And my grandma stayed with us and my family. And we live in San Diego. Every day, my grandmother had this routine she would do. And it was coming in the house, just messing around, either it was like doing some type of chores. At night, though, it was a specific routine where she would take her bath, and then there was like this engulfing fumes of Caress body soap. Like, you just knew it was grandma that was in the house. She always had this thing about slamming the door after she got out of the shower to go sit on her bed in her room, right, like adjacent from the bathroom. So my grandmother lived downstairs and all of us lived upstairs. So it was me, my dad, and my 2 siblings. When grandma passed, she was living with my aunt, which was a couple blocks down the street from us. So when we got the news, my grandma wasn't staying with us per se, but she would go back and forth to, my aunt's house and then our house. When we got the news, obviously it was devastating, and a couple of weeks passed after the funeral and things like that. I started hearing weird noises in our house. And whether it was just me by myself, or maybe my parents were upstairs, maybe my siblings were outside, but it was just me. And I'm like, oh, I'm just hearing things, or I just had a long day, whatever. One particular night, I was in her room reading a book, and she has like this green Jaguar lamp. It's like super old school that she would keep on her headrest. And she would turn it on only at night when she was getting ready to go to sleep. That night, I was laying on the opposite side of the door. So if you could walk in, you can see somebody and you can just sit on the corner of the bed. And I heard this noise, and it was just like a little like shuffling kind of noise. And it just reminded me at that moment, oh, that's grandma, like just jokingly in my head. Again, nobody's around me. My parents are upstairs, and this is late at night, probably like 11. My little brother and sister were already asleep. So I was like, that's weird, whatever. Dismissed it. And then I hear like the bathroom door open, but it was already slightly open, so I just thought it was weird, which was the bathroom adjacent from my bedroom, my grandma's old bedroom. So I was like, okay, thinking nothing of it. I just go back into my book, and then I smelled that overwhelming cloud of Caress soap. And I'm just like, no way, this is just crazy. Then I hear the door slam, the bathroom door. And I was like, what the is this? So then I'm like, okay, like I'm just tripping. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just too into this book that I'm into right now. And my grandma always sat down in the corner of her bed, and I would be there like just talking to her and just having a general conversation with her. And she was in her routine, putting her hair in her curlers. That's what she did. I kid you not, even 30 seconds later, I felt the compression at the end of the bed. And that's when I heard the door slam. And I was like, no way. I jumped up, ran up the stairs. I probably went up those 15 steps in 2 steps to my parents. And I was like, Dad, did you hear that? He was like, why are you slamming the doors? I was like, so you did hear that? I was like, I wasn't. I was in my bed reading my book. I was like, Dad, I think it's grandma. And he starts laughing. He's, yeah, she's probably after you. And I was like, what? Why me? But I was like, no, Dad, I'm serious. The door slammed and I can smell grandma's soap. He was like, I smelt it too, but I just thought it was me missing her. And I was like, no, Dad, like legit felt like there was a cloud of smoke that came into the room. And he was just like, well, what do you want me to do kind of thing? And so here I am like, do I have to go back downstairs? I did. I went back downstairs because I wasn't afraid of my grandmother. I knew she was there. Maybe she was just still like in transition, going back and forth. I don't know. I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel worried. I felt comfort of all things. Even though it seemed scary, but it was just like that moment of like peace. And I went downstairs, and as I mentioned earlier, my grandmother always turned on this green Jaguar lamp that was on her bed rest. It was on. It was not on when I went upstairs. I didn't even have it on. I had no reason for it to be on. And that's when I knew she was there. I was like, okay, Grandma, I know you're here. This is your room. And I didn't say anything to my aunt my grandma would stay over, and she was like, I think your grandma's following me. And I was like, why do you say that? I saw her red Buick. And I was like, no way. Like, we sold that car. She's like, no, I saw that red Buick. And I was like, well, who did we sell it to? Was it in San Diego? Like, I'm 15, 16 at the time. I don't know what my parents did in transactions and things like that. So she's no, because when I came home, I smelled her soap, and Grandma always has her vanilla wafers out, and the vanilla wafers were out on the table, and she had put them up because it was the last box that my grandma had. She was like, she's there. And I was just like mind blown. And that's when I told her my story. After that happened, I came home from, I think it was work, because my parents were always in and out for my brother's traveling basketball team. So I was at home alone, and Sure enough, I was hearing creaks. Our house wasn't old. It was maybe like 8 years, give or take, but it's not old. Everything was just upgraded. Weird that I was hearing creaks. And it was always in the area where my grandma was at. She was always busy, like doing something, shuffling. Like I said, she was always doing something with chores, just busy doing nothing. And I'm like, okay, who's here? I know my parents are gone. I know my siblings are gone. I went into the living room, and that's when I got my dog. And I was like, I'm like, my Rottweiler. I was like, you need to go in the house, check to see if somebody went upstairs. And I wasn't aware. This was before, those, what is those doorbell cameras and stuff? So before those were around, you couldn't see who was coming in and out of your house. Anyways, my dog goes up and down the stairs and he's fine. And I was like, okay, if he's fine, I'm fine. Sure enough, I hear it again. And then I'm like, you know what? This is ridiculous. I'm scaring myself. Let me just watch a good feel-good movie. Walk past the hallway and my grandma's door, it was slightly open. And mind you, I had just came home. I didn't go into any rooms. I was just in the living room. The Jaguar light was on. I was like, okay. I don't know if I should be scared yet or not, but I get it. My grandma is here. It was just too many distinctive memories of her to it not be her. And the Jaguar light, the vanilla wafers, seeing her Buick car. And it wasn't just my aunt, it was me, it was my sister, it was my dad. It was things that we were seeing that nobody really wanted to talk about because it sounds like we're crazy, but it wasn't. Recently, this was about 2 weeks ago, I went to go visit my parents and they live in the same house. And we were all in the dining room and I hear like the door open and close. And I was like, who's here? And they have the sensory lights and the sensory beep with the door opens and closes. So I was like, you guys expecting somebody? And I know my sister moved to Tennessee, so it wasn't like she was nearby. And my brother lives far, so I know he wasn't nearby. And they're like, oh, you know who that is. They just welcome her. They just welcome grandma. Grandma's always welcome in the house. And we joke about it now, but it's crazy because she would come and go, like I said, just busy doing nothing. She'd be going to the grocery store. She can go to the 99-cent store, picking up something for the kids. I don't know, the grandkids. It was just, we know it's her. And it was just 2 weeks ago. And I was like, wow. This old lady is just thriving to scare us, isn't she? You're scared of the unknown and you're not aware of what's going on, especially when you're reading a book or you're watching TV and you're distracted from what's happening. When it starts happening and you're not expecting it is when you're like, this is real. And how do you explain it? And this and that. But it was just like too many events that were going on for it to have not explained itself because it was happening. And when I went back downstairs, when that happened with the door closing, I was like, Dad, come down here. I was like, the light is on. I didn't have it on. I was like, you see my lamp, like the light's on. Why would I need this headrest light on? Like, why? He's like, oh no. And my dad he didn't give me the reaction that I wanted. Oh no, you're scared. He was just like, eh. He's like, it's my mom. I love her. She can come visit anytime. I feel like my family, we've grown up with the sixth sense. And I think we get it from our dad, honestly, because he would tell us, like, when one of us girls were pregnant, you're having a girl, or somebody's having a girl, and somebody's pregnant. Which one of it is it? Kind of thing. We're like, it's not me. And sure enough, it was my little brother. He's 30, but he's my little brother. He was pregnant with twins. So it was the craziest thing. And he had a girl. So no, nobody's really skeptic. Everybody actually has a sixth sense. Everybody has a feeling of something. We just don't know what it is. I think she's staying around because she wants to stay close to the family. Families definitely have their ups and downs. And she was always the calm of the storm. And I think she pops up at the right time because she wants her love to be in that present moment. And I think that every heavy conversation I have with my parents or something heavy is going on in the family, her presence is known. And it's not just for me, it's for my siblings, it's for my aunts and my uncles and her kids, essentially. And then her grandkids have always been her babies. So my grandma wants us to know at that moment when the world is not in our favor that she is there. She is our world, and she will be there to protect us. And that's why I said, it wasn't fearful. It was just like, oh my God, what's going on? I wasn't ready to expect that. But now when I am around and I'm at my parents' house and I feel her presence, I leave happier. I'm like, okay, Grandma, thank you. I had just had my daughter, so she was, give or take, 6 to 8 months. I was having a very difficult time with her father, and it was a lot of bad things that were happening. And I was at the store one day, and I saw what I thought was a transient woman outside, and I wasn't being rude or anything. I was just trying to bypass her, and I was just like, hello, and she's hello. But it was a very stern hello, and it was like she was staring at me with so much intense, and I could feel it, and I was like, this is weird. But I'm like, okay, go to the store, get what I need, and I walk out, and she's standing dead front in front of the doors when they open and they close at the grocery stores. So it was awkward, and I'm like trying to like move around her, and she wasn't moving, and I was like, excuse me. And I'm seeing everybody else walk by, and it wasn't like she was in the way for them, but she was in the way for me. Again, thought this was weird, but I was like, whatever, let's just get by. Maybe she just wants $1 or $2, maybe, I don't know. I didn't really care enough to care at the time. I was just trying to go about my way. And then she follows me to the sidewalk, and she's like, excuse me. And I turn around, and I was like, yes. And she was like, you just had a daughter. And I was like, what? And I was like, how would you know that? And I didn't want to give too much information because she's stranger danger. So I'm like, how do you know that? I'm not near my car. I didn't have my daughter with me. She was like, the angels came and spoke to me, and they needed me to tell you that the devil is alive. I was like, this lady's crazy. And she was like, no, I need to tell you something. Everything you're going through is going to be okay. And I was like, all right. And I'm looking around to see if anybody else sees this stranger talking to me. And it's like a time lapse. Like everything was going slowly. No one was really paying attention to us or me. Should I be scared? Should I scream fire? What do I do? She like comes up to me, and she gets closer, and she's like nose to nose. And I was like, okay, lady, I'm gonna have to bust out like some karate moves or something. And now I'm scared because I'm like, what is this lady gonna do to me? I'm thinking all kinds of bad things, like she's gonna stab me with a needle or something. And I'm just gonna let you know you're gonna be okay, and you have angels watching over you. I can't tell you when they'll be there, but they will be there. And I'm like, okay. I know you might find this, and she said, I know you find this strange, but it will make sense to you later. I had chills going up and down my spine, my back, and then I had this overwhelming I wanted to cry. And she was like, the intensity was so like penetrating, like it was scary. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I didn't know if that was a threat. I didn't know. So I get in my car and I sit there, and I'm like, what the hell was that? I'm looking around, checking to see if anybody was like around, and I call my mom, and I was like, Mom, I had this really weird experience with this lady. Tell her everything what she says to me. She was like, I don't know, maybe she just wanted money from you. Who knows? Just go home, don't think about it. I'm like, okay. Again, I'm a very spiritual type person. I believe in ghosts, I believe in spirits, I believe in all that. So as I'm going home, I'm on the 405 freeway. This is when I was living in Long Beach at the time. A car cut in front of me, and as we most know, people who live in San Diego or LA, that the freeways are always packed at a certain time. It was like, it just happened so fast. This car cut in front of me from the fast lane over to the slow lane. And my car like weaved, like it went side to side, and my car spun around 360 on the 405 freeway with a semi truck coming my way. I don't know how I ended off the side of the road, but I did, and I don't know how I didn't die that night. And the strangest part of it is that this lady, and I didn't think anything like about what this lady said until the semi stopped, and he's, hey, you could have been killed. What happened? I was like, I got cut off. And, I'm worried about that. I'm like, did anybody catch that guy? I can't explain it. I don't know. I called my parents crying. I'm like, I went back to the store the next day to see if this lady was out there. Nothing. There's no explanation for that. And I don't know who this person is. I didn't see her go anywhere after I got in my car. It was just strange that she was there, and I don't know how to explain it. And I actually never really told anybody this story other than my sister. So it's crazy reliving it. I almost got emotional about it because who's going to believe that? It was the craziest experience that I had. And I think my lesson from that was, I'm a mom, I'm going through a lot. I'm just going through the emotions and forgetting what life is like, and life is precious. And that sometimes you have to be shaken and be like, hey, not everything is as bad as it may seem. And that was a reality check for me. And to be nicer, kinder, because you never know what somebody's going through. And I was already being judgmental when I was being approached by this person, to make that make sense. And that's why it was scary to me, because had I just kept brushing her off, like, what would have happened? She just looked like a transient. Very stringy, brownish, blondish hair, very dark, cold eyes, which is why I didn't feel like it was inviting. I don't know, maybe it was a piece of the hell that I was going through at that time, that it was just, or maybe it was my grandmother telling somebody in the other world to like look out for me. I don't know. It is something that I have never figured out.